Hello and welcome. Today I'd like to talk about abbreviations, initialisms, and acronyms. Now, abbreviation is the term, and there's two types of abbreviation, initialisms and acronyms. I'll be discussing the difference and why it's important with you today. Now, in your research paper, you will use a lot of abbreviations, but there are two types of abbreviations, initialisms and acronyms. Now, both the initialism and the acronym must first be introduced as a full term, followed by the abbreviation. For example, diphenyl phosphate, parentheses DP. All right, that's following the phrase. And throughout the rest of your paper, you may choose to just put DP. You define it first, and then you follow with the abbreviation. Now, let's begin with initialism. Now, initialism is a type of abbreviation that we say the letters in the abbreviation. We do not say the word. Here's an example. FAQ, frequently asked question. I'm not saying a word, I'm saying each letter. Or IEEE, IEEE. I'm not saying IE as a word, I'm saying each letter separately, which is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. AFM, ESL, FWHM. These are all initialisms because I'm saying each letter separately when I pronounce it. Now, acronyms are different because acronyms are letters that form a new word. For example, laser. That's an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. But today we just say laser like a word. We don't say L-A-S-E-R. Radar is another one. We don't say R-A-D-A-R. We say radar, which stands for radio detection and ranging. Scuba, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Now, these are all very common words now, so we don't even capitalize them. We don't put them all in capital letters. Most of the time, acronyms are put in capital letters, like MET or PIN, personal identification number, are usually capitalized. Now, why do we care about the difference between the initialism and the acronym? Why is this an important distinction? Because it affects how we pronounce the word, and it affects whether we use an A or an AN in front of the word. Here's my example. Acronym, AIDS. We don't say AIDS, we say AIDS. But when we say it, the initialism HIV, we do say each letter, HIV. So notice how this changes the grammar. Our institute has implemented an HIV. Now, remember that H is a consonant, but we say an A sound, HIV. That's why we put an in front of that, an HIV. Or our institute has implemented a human immunodeficiency testing program. So you can see how whether we use an or a depends on the pronunciation of the initialism or acronym, H or human. Therefore, we care whether we pronounce it as an A sound or as a H sound in our sentence. Now, these more about initialisms. Usually when we write an initialism, we don't pluralize it. For example, GM. We don't say General Motors or GMs. It's just a singular rather than plural. Another thing to keep in mind is redundancy with your initialisms or your acronyms. Here's one, REI, etching. Now, etching is already in the E in RIE because it's radio ion etching. So when you say RIE etching, you're saying etching, etching. Or PIN, number. Now the N is number, so you're saying personal identification number, which is too much. Just say PIN by itself. Or ATM, now that's automatic teller machine. But if you say ATM machine, you're saying machine. Or random access memory, you're saying memory. Now, In conversation, this is probably fine, but in research writing, because we want to be formal and we want to be correct and we want to show our reader that we know what we're talking about, we don't want to have that redundancy, so we want to make sure that we use our initialism or acronym correctly. Another quick point is about capitalizing. When we write an acronym or initialism, we often capitalize each letter, like T, Q, M. But when we write it in our paper, we don't capitalize total, quality, and management. We write them all as smaller because it's a common word. Now, again, this is something you have to check. You have to look up to make sure that in your domain that should be a capital or a lowercase for each word in your full phrase. The acronym can be capital, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all the words in the phrase will also be capital. Well, thank you for joining us. For more information, I would encourage you to visit my blog, editing.tw/blog blog. I have a lot of articles on how Taiwanese scholars can publish better in international journals. I also have an editing and translation service. We have native English-speaking editors who revise research papers in their domain, and we're very good at preparing Taiwanese research papers to publish. For more information, you can visit our site, editing.tw.